Frequency precedes form. Have you ever heard that said before? It's a strange thing to say, but in other words, what it means is we often see on the outside, and what we think is the reality is often being shaped by what's on the inside first. Let's unpack it a little bit because I believe that frequency precedes form is incredibly important when it comes to talking about leadership. You see, sometimes we work incredibly hard to fix the form. We restructure the team, we change the process or the procedures, we introduce yet another technology or system, we have another conversation, and we push harder to try and get a different result. But often you'll find in cultures and organizations, the pattern keeps coming back. We think it's going to fix it, and then something else pops up or it comes back even further. Because what's happening is the barrier that's underneath hasn't changed. And here's the tricky part. When we fight the barrier, we often create even more resistance. And so that's why on the leadership evolution spectrum, we're starting to learn to lean in more from force to flow. Let me give you a little taste of what the spectrum is all about. And the spectrum is a tool that we've developed here at Beside Leaders Global, and it enables leaders to see where they are on an energetic and a substance scale. And so here's the scale. You can take a look. What it shows is below the line, people are operating from a place of force. So leaders that are below the line are avoiding, are micromanaging, are in hustle mode, and are hanging on, trying to control everything, which can often be quite natural for leaders and managers, especially when they're new to leading other people. But what you'll see below the line is that the amount of force that's required, that's what I was talking about, is actually getting higher. So from 50% right up to 100% force is required to get stuff done. Above the line, however, and the line is what we call the point of surrender, which requires a whole heap of courage, right? Courage to let go, courage to no longer be white knuckling, courage to think, I may not have all the answers all the time, courage to allow my staff and my people and the leaders under me to step up. As we move up into flow, a greater amount of flow, and we have then less force, right? We're more likely to go with the flow. We start using our listening and our empathy skills. We use our intuition. We're more wisdom led. We have stronger boundaries and really clear communication. Leaders that are above the line are embodied and they're intentional, and they truly have a great impact. So, how might you think about using this in what you do as a leader? And why does this even matter? Because in order to be an effective leader, we've got to move from that resistance point to surrender. And in order to do that, we have to start noticing what's actually there. What is this resistance? What's the armour that's stopping me? And so for a leader, starting to think about our thinking can mean we start looking at, when do I get angry? When do I get super controlling? When am I perfectionistic and trying to make sure everything is just perfect? Or when am I checking out and being emotionally unavailable? When do I not feel safe in my body, and therefore that shows up perhaps how I show up in meetings or at presentations? And then just look at that behavior without judgment. Just take a look, and instead of asking, oh, what's wrong with me? Why do I always do this? Instead, start thinking about, what is this trying to protect? Right? Because the more we get curious about what's going on right now and what is this trying to protect, we can sometimes start to see a bit of the patterns that were starting to show up, that were intelligent once, maybe when we were younger, maybe earlier in our career or in a different situation, and that protected us and kept us really safe. But often as we move up in leadership, what protected us back down there can constrain us when we're up here. And this is when your personal awareness can become absolute awesomeness. It can become truly powerful because when we start to see those real patterns happening clearly without fighting anymore, without defending or shaming, we can create this expansive possibility for something completely different. Our wall starts to soften. The resistance begins to melt away and release. And then a different way of leading can start emerging. At Beside Leaders Global, we don't fix people, we don't patch problems, and we're very clear that we don't come in and fix broken employees or leaders. We come in and help transform patterns, shine a light on the culture, and look at the conditions that are keeping on creating that culture. And then we look at how can we help your leaders move from that force to greater flow. Because after all, when we're in a state of flow, we create greater results. It equals better bottom line. Our people are happier and healthier, maybe even more joyful. And that is where real leadership transformation can begin.